On May 3rd, under the chieftain's oppressive rule, the elders of the Shin tribe were busily building carts, huffing and puffing. As for you, you returned to Hanyang City with your troops and carefully planted the 5 seeds in your own courtyard, treating them like precious treasures, yes, right in the courtyard. You wouldn't dare plant them anywhere else. With only these 5 seedlings, if some mischievous child or a pig were to destroy them outside, wouldn't that be a complete disaster? It was just you and the well-behaved Zhaodi at home, so the safety factor was top-notch. After planting the precious sprouts, you started thinking about the trade with the grasslands again. Now things were looking up. The Shin tribe had come to compete for business, and white salt and pottery were no longer selling well. But we weren't afraid. Our woolen cloth and ironware were still unique. Realizing this, you immediately ordered your tribesmen to work overtime and increase production. Warehouses and livestock farms were all ready. 200 slaves? Perfect. Let's build a grand 3-story school. While the slaves were eagerly digging the foundation, you waved your hand and allocated space for 2 more warehouses to serve as textile factories. All the looms were moved inside, achieving large-scale production and boosting efficiency significantly. 1 warehouse for fine spinning, 1 for weaving, with 60 shuttle looms lined up. 1 person per loom, 10 meters of cloth a day, 600 meters per workshop. This speed was simply amazing. For textile production, the more people, the better. Our Han tribe might lack many things, but women were not one of them. It was a piece of cake to pick out 100 or so from the thousands of people. With weaving taken care of, you kicked Dazui again, telling him to continue smelting iron. The last time he smelted iron was during the harsh winter, and now 3. More furnace loads of materials had accumulated, and the iron ore was also running low. You calculated that in another month, after the planting was finished in the new city area, you would send 300 slaves to the salt lake to mine, ensuring a continuous supply for our steel production line. With more people and a new city built, the demand for iron was soaring. Every household needed iron pots. Tools and weapons also had to be made of iron, and we had to keep some to sell to those suckers in the grasslands. Iron pots and scissors were big users of iron. Dazui and his crew were now experienced hands, and you didn't bother to supervise the iron smelting. You turned your attention to the woodworking team, telling them to build more 2-wheeled horse carts. This was the favorite of the nomadic people in the grasslands. Not to fleece them ruthlessly would be a disgrace to your intelligence as a transmigrator. Moreover, 2-wheeled carts were simple to make. A pair of wheels, a frame, and a few planks of wood, and it was done in minutes. We also had a wind-powered saw, making the efficiency incredibly high. 2-wheeled carts saved labor and materials, compared to 4-wheeled carts, and also saved metal parts like the steering axle, making them extremely cost-effective. And they carried less. Hey, so we could sell more of them. A profiteer? Absolutely. Between countries, what friendship? It's all about profit. Exploiting the grassland tribes? You felt no pressure at all. It was a willing buyer and a willing seller. No one could blame anyone. After arranging these major tasks, you ordered the several grassland barbarians to form a cavalry and 2 cavalry zonki, 76 men, with 2 horses each. This cavalry team would be responsible for protecting the caravans in the future, and also for grabbing territory. How to grab? Of course, by driving away those grandsons of the Shin tribe. Dare to block my path to wealth? If you don't submit, then fight. The new team was handed over to Chai Duo and several experienced grassland drivers, and you felt very reassured. You then turned your attention to the school. This was the first tall building in the Han tribe, and the tribesmen had no experience. So you, as a modern person, had to personally guide them. You hadn't learned how to build a building, but you were familiar with demolishing them. Anyway, it was all about the same. You had to understand the structure and the load-bearing capacity. Once the load-bearing problem was solved, a 3-story building was a piece of cake. Ancient people could build temples and pagodas. Could a college student like you be any worse? To build a brick concrete building, you first had to calculate its own weight, and the foundation had to be solid. A 4-meter deep foundation, the wall trench was that deep. For load-bearing points, it was even more drastic, 6-meter deep vertical shafts. What to pour into the wells? Limestone, charcoal, slag, clay, and crushed stones, a hefty pounding. No steel bars? No problem. Our primitive concrete was also strong enough. Limestone kills plants. Wells were dug at the load-bearing points. Trenches were dug for the walls, filled with these materials, all the way to 3 meters below the ground. 3 meters for the vertical shafts, 1 meter for the wall foundation, and then the wall. Foundation began to be built. A 1-meter thick wall foundation, built with large blue bricks, and then lime, slag, and crushed stones were poured on both sides, filling the trench and sealing it with soil. This was not the end. The wall foundation had to continue upwards, 1 meter above the ground, before it was considered complete. With this, the foundation alone was 4 meters high and 1 meter thick, and there was a waterproof, shockproof, and pressure-reducing concrete layer below, which could definitely support the building above. You were very satisfied with this foundation. Many people, sufficient materials, good tools, and fast speed. 200 people finished the foundation in 10 days. It was lightning fast. This school building with a brick concrete structure was basically built with bricks, wood, and tiles. The walls and pillars were made of blue bricks, solid. The beams were made of huge timbers, and then wooden floors were laid on top. The floor was made of thick wooden planks, 10 centimeters thick, placed on a grid-like beam, mainly supported by the beams. This construction method was similar to shipbuilding. Ancient wooden ships also had several decks. Zheng He's treasure ships, including the bottom cabin and the poop deck, were 7 or 8 stories high, and they were made entirely of wood. Any Western second-rate ship of the line would be larger than this school building. This school building, 16 meters wide and 35 meters long, with 3 floors, was a little brother compared to those ship battleships. A first-rate ship of the line, excluding the bottom cabin, had 3 gun decks alone, with dozens of cannons weighing several tons on each deck, not to mention the weight of cannonballs, gunpowder, and crew. This school building only had a few. Wooden tables. It was a piece of cake. No kidding, the floorboards could handle a group of adults dancing on them. Of course, this was a classroom for classes, and physical education had to be done outside. On the construction site, people were coming and going. The 200 slaves were now very obedient, doing whatever they were told. Having built so many warehouses, they were also skilled in bricklaying, and under the command of the tribesmen, they worked in an orderly manner. Those carrying bricks carried bricks, those laying bricks laid bricks, and those mixing mud were also busy. But why were there so many children on the construction site? The little boys rescued from the Huo tribe, 700 or 800 of them, 5 or 6 years old, had nothing to do all day and nothing to play with. The older children were helping the adults with their work, but these half-grown children were just wandering around the city, going wherever there was excitement. Look, some were playing with mud by the mud pile, some were running around the construction site, these mischievous kids. This was not okay. Not to mention hindering the work. Safety was also a problem. The construction site was full of tools and bricks. What if they got bumped or scratched? These little ancestors must be removed. You thought about it and understood. These kids were just bored. When you were a child, although you didn't have so many electronic products, you had a lot of toys and games. These primitive children had truly nothing. This problem was easy to solve. You turned it over in your head and came up with several games suitable for children. Having made up your mind, you beckoned to a child who was stealing mud. The child shivered, quickly threw away the mud, and came over with his hands behind his back. "Greetings, chieftain." "Greetings. What greetings? The adults are working. Don't you make trouble," you said with a smile. "But the older brothers and sisters won't take me to herd sheep, and I want to go too. They say I'm too young. There's nothing at home, so I can only go out to play," the little kid said aggrievedly. All right, I know you have nothing to do. How about this? You call all your friends to the square and tell them the chieftain said he'll teach you something fun. You patted his head. Really, chieftain? What fun? Oh, call everyone first, and I'll tell you when you get to the square. Go quickly, and remember to wash your hands, you urged. Okay, thank you, chieftain. The child ran away and began to call his friends, spreading your good news. When the mischievous kids heard there was something to play with, they yelled and gathered together, running towards the square. You watched with amusement. These children were really pitiful. They had never even seen the things you played with as a child, and they had no childhood fun at all. Shaking your head, you turned around to prepare toys for the children. For these simple children, toys didn't need to be expensive or exquisite. A sandbag, a jump rope, a rubber band, a geonzi could make them happy. Didn't you grow up like this? You got to work. You didn't have rubber bands, and geonzi needed copper coins. But sandbags were easy. You found a pile of small cloth bags used for packing salt, stuffed them with rice bran, sawdust, and sand, tied the openings, and a simple sandbag was made. The jump rope was even simpler. Just pull a hemp rope. These things were very cheap, but they brought so much joy to a generation. In the square, hundreds of children were making a fuss, waiting for you. You didn't waste any words carrying a basket of sandbags. You came, followed by several women carrying ropes. When the children saw the chieftain coming, they swarmed around, craning their necks to see what you had brought. Come, don't fight. There are plenty of sandbags. Everyone gets one. I'll teach you how to play first, and then you can form your own teams to play, okay? Okay. Oh. You randomly called 3 children. 2 stood at a distance, and 1 stood in the middle. The 3 of them shared a sandbag. The 2 on the sides threw the sandbag to hit the 1 in the middle, and the 1 in the middle dodged. If they were hit, they would switch places. This was the simplest way to play, and it could also be played with multiple people. Anyway, it was just throwing sandbags to hit people. It was not dangerous, and running and jumping could also exercise the body and practice accuracy. In the future, throwing stones in battle would also be a great skill. The children were immediately interested, yelling and finding friends to get sandbags, and they started playing in an open space in the square. After a while, the square was filled with the children's laughter. The children were having a blast playing with sandbags in the square. Oh my God, there were too many people and not enough sandbags. With a wave of your hand, you distributed some ropes and taught them how to jump rope. These little rascals jumped like rabbits, so happy that they even had snot bubbles. The square was bustling, and even the adults passing by couldn't help but take a few more glances, feeling happy in their hearts. After playing for less than half an hour, more mischievous kids caught wind of it and came. You were dumbfounded. You hadn't prepared enough toys, how to distribute them? Well, since you had already taught them, you might as well go all the way and pull in the women with children to join in the fun. Not enough toys? That's not a problem. We have plenty of games that don't need toys. Hen and chickens, drop the handkerchief. Let's go. For a time, the square was filled with chaos and laughter. You thought, this effect is awesome. Today is definitely Han Tribe Children's Day, even happier than modern children's June 1st. The adults working also looked envious who wouldn't want to play something. What to play? Something suitable for adults, cheap and also good for exercise. You had a flash of inspiration. It had to be football. Our ancestors played football as early as the spring and autumn period. At that time, it was called kuju, a ball sewn from animal skin, stuffed with hair, rice bran, and other things. A group of people chased and kicked it, both for entertainment and exercise. It is said that Huo Kubing even used it to train his troops. By the Tang Dynasty, it was even better. They directly used inflatable footballs, with bladders made of animal bladders, full of elasticity. If we're talking about the most popular time, it had to be the Song Dynasty. They even had football stars. Do you know Gao Q, the guy who kicked his way to becoming a Grand Marshal? Who would believe it now? But at that time, everyone played football. It was that awesome. There's even a joke online that when Gao Q died, Chinese football went downhill for 1,000 years. Cough. I digress. You thought football is so good, it must be promoted in the Han tribe. However, just having football was not enough. It could be played in the army, and children could also play, but what about those adults who were exhausted from work every day? They probably also wanted to play, but didn't have the energy. Therefore, we still needed to come up with some entertainment. Projects that didn't require much physical effort. You slapped your thigh. Gambling games like dice were not allowed. They were easy to get addicted to. We had to play something healthy. Stratego, Chinese checkers, Ludo, Go, Chinese chess, Weiqi. These were great. They could relax and stimulate the mind, which was beneficial to the development of the tribe. After all, people developed through their intelligence and wisdom. You did what you said, and immediately gathered a group of pregnant women and women with children to start making toys. Sandbags? Simple. Just use the leftover fabric from making clothes. Jianzi? Wait a minute. Metal and feathers were precious. Now we'll talk about it later. Football? Sew animal skin together, stuff it with rice bran and hemp fiber, and don't waste the leftover scraps from making leather armor. Trash could also be turned into treasure. In addition, 2 apprentices from the woodworking team started making chess pieces. The boards for Weiqi and Go were similar, so start with the simple ones first, and then challenge the more difficult ones after learning. You also gave them a suggestion. After learning, you can figure out how to find substitutes for the chess. Pieces yourselves. Draw a chessboard on the ground, and you can play for half a day. Back when I was in junior high, I drew a chessboard on my homework notebook, drew triangles and circles, and still fought fiercely with my classmates. Making chess pieces is actually quite easy. Find a wooden stick of the right thickness. Saw it into small wooden blocks, polish them, and then paint them with different colors. And you're done. Chinese chess is a bit more troublesome. You have to carve characters, but if you're not too picky, you can just write with paint. As long as it's playable, there's no need to be so exquisite. If you really want something beautiful, you can slowly make it yourself when you have time. The tasks were assigned, and the tribesmen were very efficient. With ample materials, more than 40 footballs were made in the Han tribe in just one night. You looked at these footballs as if you saw the future. Han tribe, the cradle of football. With a wave of your hand, 30 footballs flew into the crowd of children. One ball was enough to keep them busy. Now hundreds of kids could play to their heart's content. You kept the remaining 10 or so balls for the cavalry and the caravan. Hey, we need a proper football field. Taking a rope ruler, you measured out a space on the pasture outside the west gate, and then asked everyone to build goals with wood, and then cover them with the large nets woven by the tribe. Flags were inserted at the 4 corners of the field, and white lime was sprinkled, and the sidelines appeared. This field, how modern. You used to play a lot in the army, and you knew all the rules. As for ancient Kuju, the goal was as small as an iron pot, and both teams kicked into the same goal. It was not as fun as modern football. This game, not only do you have to score goals, but you also have to run. With the field ready, you started teaching on the spot. The soldiers took off their black armor and put on red short robes, while the caravan wore dark blue short robes, clearly distinguished. 11 players per team, 1 goalkeeper, 10 players, and you personally acted as the referee. How professional. The rules were simple and straightforward. No fighting, no pulling, no touching the ball with your hands. Kick the ball into the opponent's goal to score, and the team with the highest score wins. The soldiers and caravan members were overjoyed. Who had ever played this before in their lives? They used to be busy filling their stomachs every day. Now they had this opportunity. They couldn't wait to play. With a gong sound, the game began. The red and blue sides chased each other. It was so intense. The children herding sheep nearby were stunned, and the sheep, sheepdogs, and shepherds all rushed into the field. The sheep chased the ball. The dogs chased the sheep, and the people chased the dogs. You looked at this chaotic scene, your head buzzing. This was not football. This was the animal world. You quickly blew the gong to pause the game, first clearing the field, and then asked the players who were not on the field to stand on the sidelines as security guards, only allowing the children to watch from outside. After one game, the little kids in the city also smelled the excitement and came, cheering from outside the field. However, playing football was one thing, but proper training could not be neglected. In the afternoon, the adults were all busy, and the field became the children's world. Dozens of kids ran around on the field. 4 or 5 could squeeze into one goal. Rules? They didn't exist. Anyway, they just knew to kick the ball into the goal, whether it was their own goal. Who cares? An own goal is still a goal. Just have fun. You watched the children play happily, feeling delighted, as if you were back in modern times. Just as you were feeling nostalgic, a flying eagle message arrived, interrupting your thoughts. The letter was from Yu Yi's scout team. They went out, this time mainly to find the lair of the cannibals, and also to draw a map. The letter said that they had 2 horses each and ran very fast. The new weapons were also easy to use, especially the crossbows, which shot faster and more accurately than bows and arrows, that's for sure. Drawing a bow requires arm strength, while drawing a crossbow uses the strength of the whole body. Moreover, aiming with a crossbow is much easier. You don't have to keep pulling the bow, saving a lot of energy. After reporting on the new weapons came the reconnaissance results. They set out from the north of Hanyang City, crossed the valley where they caught zebras, crossed the grassland, and followed the traces of the cannibals, all the way to the upper reaches of the river next to the iron mining area. It seemed that the cannibals also followed the river, and perhaps the tribes upstream had already suffered. Sure enough, the letter said that Yu Yi and his team found that there were no tribes on either side of the river, but they found some abandoned settlements, all destroyed beyond recognition. They continued north. The terrain became higher and higher, and there were more mountains. This was normal. Water flows downwards, and they were going upstream. The mountainous terrain was difficult to measure, so they just advanced quickly, riding horses in the mountains for 3 days, and finally saw the plains again. There were forests and grasslands here, and they also saw herds of alpacas, elk, yaks, and an animal that looked like a horse but was smaller, with long ears and a harsh cry. You thought, this was probably a plateau wild ass. When they got here, the traces of the cannibals disappeared and there were no tribes around. Yu Ye sent flying eagles to scout, but they didn't find any trace of the cannibals, so they decided to continue upstream along the river. The scout team traveled for another day and actually found the source of this river. It turned out that the small river outside Hanyang City was just a branch of the big river. The big river upstream was 50 meters wide. But the water was not deep. There were many stones in the river, and they could cross on horseback. Moreover, at the confluence of the branches of the big river, they finally encountered humans, and not cannibals. These people also knew about the cannibal totem warriors and were quite familiar with them. Now Yu Yi and his team were resting in that tribe, and they also gave some white salt to the people. The people of that tribe were also very enthusiastic towards them. After all, for the sake of salt, they had to be polite. This tribal alliance was not small, a whopping 2,000 or 3,000 people. However, it was more accurate to say that it was a dozen small tribes banding together for warmth, forming an alliance. They had one thing in common. They had all been beaten by the cannibals. Later, for some reason, they came together, intending to fight the cannibals together. This alliance had a large population, but they hadn't learned how to farm yet. They only knew how to raise some wild animals. They had captured many of the elk, alpacas, and wild asses on the grassland and had raised them for several generations, and they were about to become livestock. Moreover, these people, regardless of gender or age, all knew how to ride horses. No, ride alpacas, wild asses, and elk. It is said that this was to run fast and escape when encountering cannibals. You thought, This operation, there's no one like them. There were also several old antiques in the alliance, equivalent to the shamans or elders of other tribes. They each inherited the knowledge of their tribes, and they also had a common myth. This myth was passed down in the form of pictures, and it is said that other nearby alliances also knew about it. Several old guys showed Yu Ye and his team the pictures carved on stone slabs and also told the story, which made Yu Ye and his team stunned. This kid Yu Ye, after seeing the pictures, asked two of his team members to copy the pictures onto animal skins and sent them back together with the letter, thoughtfully including a written version of the story introduction. You thought, this service truly attentive. This was a prophecy story. The story begins in a valley where a monkey was born. This monkey grew bigger and bigger, eventually becoming twice as tall as its peers. This was the content of the first picture, introducing the origin of the giant ape. You didn't quite believe that this giant ape's genes mutated and could grow so big. Even if it had gigantism, it couldn't directly double in size. However, what you were more concerned about was the valley drawn in the picture, round and high, just like a volcanic crater. In fact, you had long guessed that there were volcanoes here. When you first saw the banded ore veins of Babao Mountain, you said that they were all formed by volcanic eruptions and lava flows. The second picture continues the story. Because the giant ape was too big and couldn't get enough to eat, it started to eat its own kind. His kind were terrified, and some of them left the valley. Before leaving, these people held a grand sacrifice, and then the mountain collapsed. The stones fell down and turned into water, forming rivers that flowed into the distance. The migrating apes followed the rivers. This picture was a bit mysterious. According to the story, it was too magical. You figured that the apes in the valley had split, and some of them left. Before leaving, they worshipped the mountain god. As for the mountain collapsing and the stones turning into water, you thought that this picture might be of a snow mountain, where ice and snow melted and ice cubes turned into water, which was more scientific. Ice and snow melted to form rivers, flowing into the distance. This might mean that the water source of this land was that snow mountain. The migrating people followed the river, which was understandable, as people cannot live without water. The third picture continues the story of the migration. This group of people followed the river, multiplied and grew stronger, and many tribes appeared. The giant apes in the valley also gave birth to more giant apes. Later, the giant apes walked out of the valley, followed the river to catch people, ate some, and captured some to live with them, hunt together, eat people. You couldn't quite understand this picture. Previously, in the Heishu tribe, he had seen similar murals, saying that the giant apes captured people and raised them, which was not scientific. However, combined with the first two pictures, you understood. The giant apes might still regard these people as their former tribesmen, just like they used to live together in the valley. Although some people went out, they were all turned from monkeys, so the giant apes thought they were still family. Thinking about it this way, it made sense. This also explained another phenomenon. The giant apes living on the snow mountain still had long golden red hair, while the humans who migrated out, the further they walked, the lower they got, the warmer it became, and their hair degenerated, turning into the humans you see now. The fourth picture was still about the giant apes, coming down the mountain to catch people, but this time they also brought those humans who had mixed with them again. These should be the current cannibals. The following events were to continue eating people, catching people, mixing together. The cannibals grew stronger, and then returned to the snow mountain. The fifth picture tells of those humans who migrated out, unable to stand the torment of the cannibals, and began to band together for warmth, forming a tribal alliance. This was interesting. Whether it was the alliance Yu Ye and his team encountered, or the current Han tribe, if you forced to fit it into this story, it could really fit. You don't know how that alliance came together, but on the Han tribe's side, the Shu tribe, the Heishu tribe, and the recently joined group of people, apart from your contribution, they really gathered together to fight against the cannibals. Whether it was a tribal alliance or the Han tribe, according to this picture, it made sense. You thought, this story, it's quite well-rounded. If the first 4 pictures were wild guesses based on what the primitive people saw, then the 5th picture was a bit superstitious because it predicted something that hadn't happened yet. How did those ancient ancestors know that the tribes would band together in the future? Of course, it might also be an idea thought up by some smart person. Being bullied by the cannibals and unable to fight back, they thought, we need to get more people. There is strength in numbers. This might have been their wish, but the conditions were not right at that time, and it could not be realized. You desperately tried to find reasons to refute the metaphysical elements in this picture, but when he saw the next picture, his world view, which had been built up for more than 20 years, completely collapsed. The 6th picture was too mysterious. You know, primitive people were superstitious and they attributed everything to gods. This picture depicted a god totem, but this god was not a beast but a person, a man riding a one-tusked elephant. He also wore a crown and a hairpin on his head. This was you? What made you even more confused was that the image of this totem, the primitive people's drawing skills were not good. They couldn't draw 3-dimensional images. They were all outlined with lines. Therefore, this totem of a man wearing a crown and a hairpin drawn with simple strokes looked especially like the Han character of the Han tribe. If you break down the Han character, the me on top looks like a hat. The horizontal stroke in the middle looks like a hairpin, the Tian. Character below, divided into 2 halves by the middle vertical stroke, looks like pectoral muscles, and then 2 horizontal strokes and 1 vertical stroke below. 6-pack abs, perfect. The 2 legs at the bottom, perfect. So this was the image of a man wearing a crown, with well-developed pectoral and abdominal muscles. You gasped. This. How to explain this? Of course, he knew that Chinese characters evolved from pictures. Primitive people drew what they saw, and eventually it became writing. But the problem was, they had to have seen it to draw it. Draw abstract things? They hadn't seen it. How could they draw it? How big of a brain would it take to create something out of thin air? So the question was, if this totem only had pectoral, muscles, abdominal muscles, and 2 legs, it could be understood. But where did the crown and hairpin on the totem's head come from? They hadn't seen them. These were only promoted after you came. And the first person in the world to tie up his hair and insert a hairpin seemed to be yourself, right? If the fierce man totem could be explained by the evolution of characters, then the most inexplicable thing was that single-tusked elephant. If this wasn't Huishan, Huishan himself wouldn't believe it. What's even more bizarre is that Huishan only became single-tusked after following you. You even imagined that the artist might have seen a single-tusked elephant and then fantasized about a man wearing a hair crown. You could understand if these 2 images were drawn separately, but the 2 combined, it must be you and Huishan. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence? Confirming that it was you in the painting, you continued reading with mixed feelings. You couldn't help but feel conflicted, because these paintings were truly prophecies, and prophecies that had already come true. The paintings depicted you and Huishan, and that totem, which is now printed on the flag of the Han tribe, isn't it the character Han? Han? The 7th painting. Well, it's the man riding the single-tusked elephant, uniting many tribes, or tribal alliances. Anyway, the number of people kept increasing. Why do you say that? In the painting, you were standing there riding Huishan with a group of people following behind. These people were all different, some with beasts beside them, others with strange things. This is easy to understand. You and Huishan represent the Han tribe. The people behind, each with a totem, represent a tribe. Moreover, outside your small group, there were many people with totems walking towards you. Doesn't this mean that other tribes were about to join your ranks? Having accepted the previous premise, the 8th painting was easy to understand. It depicted you leading many tribes. Or you could say the people of the Han tribe, after many tribes had joined. These people, like the totem gods, were muscular and strong. These people followed the river to the snow mountain where the giant apes lived, and then the two sides fought. You, riding the elephant, were holding the giant ape's head and Huishan's. Two front legs were stepping on the headless giant ape corpse. It seemed that this battle was won. And then, nothing. The painting stopped there. You also confirmed one thing. This painting was truly a prophecy, and it was slowly coming true. Except for the fact that you hadn't led people to the snow mountain for the final battle, everything else had come true or was coming true. So the question arises again. The tribe that possesses these paintings, they can understand their meaning. These paintings actually conveyed one message. Unity is strength, and unity can defeat everything. Since they knew, why didn't they unite the tribes themselves? Why wait for you? Thinking carefully, this matter, apart from you, really no one else could do it. Why? Primitive people had to hunt and gather fruits to survive. This limited their ability to gather together. Because the prey and fruits in one place were limited, they could only support so many people. Therefore, the territory of one tribe could not accommodate a second tribe. There was not enough food to eat, and gathering together would lead to starvation. So how could they unite? And you know how to farm and raise livestock, solving the problem of feeding a large number of tribes gathered together. Therefore, you could become the leader of all tribes. Thinking about it, it really makes sense. You knew very well why these tribes were flocking to you. It wasn't because you could feed them, but that fool Yunya just couldn't understand and kept muttering about divine things. Uni was currently bewildered. Oh my God. So our leader is a god descended to earth. And he's going to unite the world? This excited him. This was the God of gods. We are now the right-hand men of the god, and in the future, we will follow him to dominate the world. But excitement aside, Uni was also worried. What should we do now? Should we continue scouting the cannibal's lair, or what? All right, let's write a letter and ask the leader. You were also thinking about this matter. Uni's encounter with these believers in prophecy might be a good thing. As long as we can prove that we are the chosen one in the prophecy, won't they all readily submit? Who wouldn't want free population? And this prophecy, has great potential. The prophecy says that we are the leader, so let's just admit it. This way, incorporating those tribes that believe in prophecy will be a piece of cake. The more you thought about it, the better it seemed. You decided to take advantage of this opportunity and promote this prophecy, letting everyone know that you were destined by fate. Then, it would be natural to ascend the throne, establish the great Han Empire, and as the emperor, conquering other tribes would be justified and righteous. Maybe you wouldn't even need to fight, just talk, and you could recruit a bunch of followers. Besides, with the Han tribe's development speed, the population has exceeded 10,000 and 2 cities have been built. At this rate, the workers in the new city district will soon become our own people. With more and more people, calling it a tribe is too low class. It's also troublesome to manage. You can't handle everything yourself as the CEO, right? You'd be exhausted. Therefore, establishing a country is very necessary. Setting up the management system early will prevent chaos when the territory expands and the population grows. This matter should be done sooner rather than later. Now that the opportunity has presented itself, not seizing it would be a disservice to yourself. You decided to reply to Uni immediately. In the letter, you asked Uni to send 2 people to invite the leadership of that tribal alliance, and also to bring the prophecy stone tablets. If they could contact other tribes that believed in the prophecy, even better, invite them all. Tell them that the leader in the prophecy is summoning them. Of course, you couldn't abandon your old business. You asked Uni to lead the remaining people to continue scouting the cannibal's lair and also to verify the accuracy of the prophecy to see if the cannibal's lair was really in the volcanic crater, if there was a snow mountain, and where, the source of the river was. This time, everything could be confirmed. The letter was sent by the Eagle, and it should arrive in a day or two. It would take them at least a month to gather their people and bring the stone tablets. Just in time, during this period, you could also think carefully about the future of the great Han Empire and the preparations for the founding of the nation. The school in Hanyang City was still under construction. The bear children were playing happily, and the adults were busy with their own work. You, on the other hand, began to squeeze out time to study the future development plan of the great Han Empire. With the current small size of the Han tribe, provinces, prefectures, and counties. Forget it. At most, there might be a few town chiefs, and there are only 2 cities now. The dream is sexy, but reality is harsh. We still need to take it one step at a time. In summary, there are 4 sentences. Work hard, develop quietly, get rich through hard work, and prosper through trade. The matter of founding the nation is clear. Now it's just a matter of waiting. Waiting for what? Waiting for the new city district to be completed, waiting for Hanyang City to produce something, waiting for Yunyi to bring the leaders of the tribes who want to join us, and the prophecy stone tablets, which are the ironclad proof of our destiny. To put it bluntly, this is just like Liu Bang slaying the white snake. It's a gimmick, a justification for becoming emperor. The Han tribe was developing steadily, preparing for the founding of the nation. And on the distant southwestern island, the Shin tribe was also working hard on the automobile industry, preparing seeds to exchange for prototype vehicles with the Han tribe, while also focusing on their own research and development. It is worth mentioning that the Shin tribe now had a bit of a private ownership flavor. Below the tribal headquarters in Qingquan Valley, there were many small villages with 1,000 or 2,000 people, all under the management of the headquarters. Why is it called semi-private ownership? Because the grain, vegetables, and livestock they grow and raise do not need to be handed over. They have the final say. However, they don't have their own land and houses. The Shin tribe hasn't evolved to the stage of private land ownership. Although these ordinary people do not have fixed allocated fields and houses, if a family wants to get married and start a life, they can also build a new bamboo house on the edge of the village. No one cares about occupying land. To put it bluntly, there are still too few people. Although they already have nearly 30,000 people compared to the land they occupy, there is still a lot of wasteland. Want to build a house? Find a place and build it yourself. The tribe doesn't care about building houses uniformly, if ordinary. People want to build a house. They will ask the villagers for help, but the family building the house must also provide some food as compensation. Not much, but meals are a must. If new land is being cultivated, it is done next to the existing large fields. If livestock and farm tools are needed for gengdi, they are exchanged for grain from the government. That is to say, the Shin tribe does not collect agricultural tax, but the government monopolizes the livestock trade and metal smelting. If the common people want to eat meat, need animal skins, or buy tools, they can only exchange them for grain from the government. But how much land you occupy and how much grain you grow, the government doesn't care. Ordinary people also plant as much as they can. The more grain, the better their lives, and they can exchange for more things. In addition, the government strictly controls livestock such as cattle and horses. Ordinary people only have cattle, not horses. Want a cow? Exchange it for grain. And if your cow has a calf, you have to give it to the government, and the government will give you some compensation. The point is, they just don't want you to have too many livestock. Pigs and sheep can be raised by yourself, but the animal skins must be handed over, which is considered an animal husbandry tax. Then the common people have no clothes to wear and want animal skins. They still have to exchange them for pigs, sheep, or grain from the government. Common people can exchange food with each other, such as exchanging grain for meat, but they cannot exchange livestock. These rules have many flaws, but they are not a country yet. It's just a large tribe in primitive society. The leaders have already done a great job coming up with these methods to manage the common people below them, but it can also be seen that the Shin tribe attaches great importance to trade. The governments. Money is basically earned by selling cattle and horses, and the metal they smelt themselves. In a village on the northwest side of Zhudao Island, near the southwest coast, several elders of the Shin tribe were huddled together studying how to build a cart. Not far away, under several bamboo houses, women and children were sitting on the ground working. They had a large winnowing basket in front of them, with split bamboo tubes placed diagonally inside. The women held a bamboo tube in one hand and rubbed a dried corn cob against the bamboo joints inside the tube with the other hand. Each rub could remove many corn kernels. The children nearby were doing the same work, just like playing a game. But today was a little different. Many children ran to watch the elders study the wheels. To build a cart, the most crucial thing is the wheel. These days, making wheels, of course, you have to use wood. Metal ones are too heavy, and pottery ones are too hard and fragile. Wood is the best, but without bronze, without iron tools, how do you work with wood? This is ridiculous. But this couldn't stop the elders of the Shin tribe and the caravan leader who had heard of ox carts. In just a few days, they had come up with two types of wheels. The elders took the lead, using copper axes to chop wood, and made a solid wood wheel. To put it bluntly, it's just cutting a piece of wood directly from a log, drilling a hole in the middle and inserting an axle. This wheel is simple to make, but it also has many flaws. It's too heavy, and this solid wood wheel, like you, encountered a problem. If the wood slice is cut thick, it's very heavy, but it runs smoothly. After all, the contact area with the ground is large, just like the tires of a sports car. If you cut it thinner, the weight is lighter, but it's not stable. When it runs, it's just like the one you made, swaying from side to side. And this solid wood wheel has a fatal flaw. It can't be made too big, because the maximum size of the wheel is the same as the thickness of the wood. They can't cut down those trees that are more than 1 meter thick. Even if they use copper axes to chop for a few days and cut it down, they can't transport it, let alone split a wooden slice for a wheel. Besides, even if they could really cut out a 1 meter diameter wooden slice wheel, the radius would only be half a meter, which means the axle height is only half a meter. The frame has to be installed on the axle, so you can imagine how low the chassis of this cart would be. It's simply impossible to use cattle or horses to haul goods. But this couldn't stop them from inventing and creating. Solid wood wheels can't be used to make large carts, but what about small carts? Several elders had a brainstorm, and finally, they used bamboo as a support and wooden slices as wheels to create the Shin tribe's first wheelbarrow. This wheelbarrow requires 2 people to push, 1 person in front holding 2 handles and pulling with a rope, and 1 person pushing from behind. Although this requires 2 people, it is much less strenuous than carrying loads. Why 2 people? Because they found that when some things are loaded onto the wheelbarrow, it becomes difficult to maintain balance. The other type of wheel was spearheaded by the caravan leader. It looked similar to the wheels of the Han tribe, but it was really just for show. The caravan leader had heard about the details of ox carts and knew how wheels were made. A wheel mainly consists of 3 parts: the hub, where the axle goes, the spokes for support, and the outer rim. The leader first cut some thin bamboo, selecting those of the same thickness for later use. He cut these thin bamboo poles to the same length, to be used as spokes to support the wheel. Then he hit a snag when making the hub. He couldn't make a wooden hub and didn't have the right tools. But this didn't stop him. The leader had a flash of inspiration and came up with a solution. Use clay to make the hub. The hub is the most complex part of the wheel. It needs to connect the spokes and the axle simultaneously. Not only does it need a horizontal hole for the axle, but it also needs many evenly spaced holes on the outer ring for the spokes. For such a complex part, The leader simply molded one out of clay and then fired it into a ceramic part. With a ceramic hub, the rest was easy. The spokes were ready-made. Just insert the thin bamboo poles. For the final outer rim, the leader chose a type of bamboo with a thicker wall. He selected thick bamboo of the appropriate thickness, and without splitting it, he bent it directly, with fire, slowly bending it into a circle. Then, he calculated the position of the spokes, used a red-hot copper awl to drill holes in the bamboo, and finally connected the outer rim. The wheels made in this way were quite beautiful, and they could be made as big as you wanted, and they were lightweight. After all, except for a clay hub, the rest of the materials were bamboo. However, although this bamboo wheel could be used to make large carts, it also had problems. First of all, it wasn't sturdy. A large cart made with bamboo wheels could carry light things, but if it was loaded too heavily, the wheels would deform and even fall apart. Even that ceramic hub deserves criticism. That thing was too brittle, and its hardness was so high, if heavy things were loaded on the cart, the ceramic hub might break with the slightest bump, simply because pottery has no cushioning at all. Another point is that the wheels slipped and were picky about the road. You can imagine. His bamboo wheel was made of whole bamboo, and the outermost part was just roasted with fire. But how smooth is the surface of bamboo? If the surface of the wheel is too smooth, it won't grip the ground. The friction is small, and it's strange if it doesn't slip when running. Although these two types of wheels have a lot of problems, they can be considered as the Shin tribe moving from nothing to something, ending the bachelor situation, and it's a good start. At least they have experience making wheels, and it will be much easier to improve them in the future. A group of people excitedly took the newly built cart to Qingquan Valley, wanting to show off in front of the leader and see if they could get some rewards. And on the north side of Hanyang City, a large eagle with your letter to Yunya and a small package tied to its leg flew all the way north. Its sense of direction was excellent, its eyesight was also good, and it had the rivers on, the ground as navigation. It was impossible for it to get lost on its own unless it was shot down. Flying all the way north, after 2 days, the eagle finally saw the tribal alliance that lived near the river fork. Just as the eagle arrived, another large eagle they brought returned from afar, carrying a small deer. As a result, it happened to meet its companion. The two eagles immediately called and circled in the sky for several rounds, before reluctantly landing on the ground with their things. Yunya saw your reply and immediately told the contents of the letter to the old men of the tribal alliance, which also surprised them. You said your leader is the divine man on the stone tablet who unites everyone? What evidence do you have? Asked an old man from a tribe. Here's a flag that our leader asked us to send. Take a look, everyone. Does the Han character on it look like the totem god statue on your stone tablets? Also, here are the hat and hairpin that our leader wears. Look, these things were invented by our leader. He's the first person I've ever seen wearing these things. And most importantly, our leader's mount is also the same as the one in the mural, a single-tusked elephant. And some time ago, we just finished fighting with the cannibals, and the surrounding tribes have also joined our Han tribe. The things in these paintings are becoming real in our tribe. Yunya was still taking things out one by one for those people to see. These were all specially brought by the eagle by your order. Otherwise, without some real evidence, he was really afraid that he wouldn't be able to invite these people. Kidnap them. That was even more impossible. First, the other party had a lot of people, making it difficult to do. Second, you wanted peaceful coexistence. It was best not to fight, so that you could peacefully incorporate that tribal alliance in the future. More than a dozen tribal leaders gathered around. Most of them were elderly, wise men, or strong leaders, but now they all had the same expression, dumbfounded. A bright red woolen flag with a yellow square in the middle and a large Han character written on it in black paint. This character looked really similar to the totem god statue they painted, and that set of golden hats and hairpins with fancy hollow patterns carved on them, and a same Han character on the front, made of pure copper. Judging from the degree of wear, they were obviously old objects, and they were definitely not made in the past 2 days to fool people. This is what the god wears? And this totem? What is this totem called? Did the god bring this totem? In the crowd, an old man who looked very old but was actually only in his 40s, tremblingly touched the flag and the copper hat and said, "You said that dozens of tribes have joined your tribe recently, so do they live together? There must be a lot of people, right? With so many people living together, what do they eat?" Another old man in the crowd asked. Although these people claimed to believe in prophecy, it was more like a beautiful wish, because they themselves also felt that the things on the rock paintings were too difficult. But now someone has really done it. They feel more disbelief, shock, and a little excitement. Could it be that good days are really coming? Has the tribe that can lead everyone to live a good life together appeared? Everyone, what I just told you is all true. This hat and hairpin were first invented by our leader, and this totem you mentioned, our leader taught us to call it Hanzi, Han character. There is more than just this one Hanzi. Our leader taught us a lot of Hanzi. Hanzi is a kind of symbol, a symbol that can represent anything. It's very magical, and it was also created by our leader. As for the people you mentioned who joined, our tribe, how they live together, this matter is more complicated. Because everyone has many sources of food, not only raising livestock, but also planting grain or fishing in the river, these can all be eaten. Our leader's meaning is to invite everyone to go and see, to let everyone see with their own eyes that the Han tribe has the ability to lead everyone, the ability to let everyone eat well and dress warmly, and will become more and more powerful. He also asked you to bring those stone tablets so that you can prove his identity, and if you have the opportunity, you can also contact the surrounding tribal alliances and invite their leaders and elders to visit the Han tribe together. Yuni heard them ask these questions and quickly answered according to what you said in your reply, hoping to bring them all back, and the more people brought back, the better. If he could contact the nearby tribal alliances, that would definitely be a great achievement. Little brother, what you just said, is it really what your leader asked you to say? How did he tell you? I see you always holding that piece of animal skin. Could it be that the animal skin can transmit sound? Is your leader really a god? A bow, sturdy-looking man in the crowd asked with a puzzled look. Ha ha ha, our leader is of course a god. Although this animal skin cannot transmit sound, it is filled with the Hanzi created by our leader. As I just told you, the Hanzi created by our leader can represent anything, and of course it can also be used to convey messages. If this leader doesn't believe it, feel free to take this piece of animal skin and look at it, Yuni said, and handed over the animal skin on which you wrote the reply. A group of old and young people immediately gathered around, looking at the square Hanzi, neatly arranged in rows from left to right on the animal skin. They were all stunned. At first glance, these characters all look the same, but upon closer inspection, they are all different. But there are still many identical parts, which are actually the radicals. Such a complex set of writing, it doesn't look like something ordinary. People can create. After this exhibition of Hanzi, these people finally believed that you were not simple. Regardless of whether he was the man in the legend who could lead everyone, it would not be a loss to meet him at least. So a group of high-level officials decided to go to Hanyang City immediately to open their eyes. The leader, a strong man, attached great importance to this visit and was busy letting his people prepare things. However, he saw that Yuni only arranged 2 warriors to lead them, but he did not plan to go with them, and he immediately became suspicious, so he went to ask Yuni what was going on. Oh, this matter. It was specially ordered by our leader. Our main task this time is to find the cannibal's lair. Although we have heard from you that it is on a snow mountain, we don't know the specific location. Although our Han tribe is not afraid of the cannibals making trouble, it is annoying for them to keep coming, isn't it? The leader wants to completely solve the cannibal problem, so we must find a precise route this time to prepare for the future counterattack of the large army. Uni explained to the strong man. Oh, is your leader really sure of winning against those cannibals? They have a lot of people. Ha ha. What's the big deal? They have a lot of people, but we also have a lot of people. Under the leadership of our leader, the people of our Han tribe will definitely become more and more. Besides, although we don't have as many people as them, our weapons are not something they can compare to. I believe in our leader, and I believe in our Han tribe we will definitely win, Uni said confidently. Little brother, you are quite bold. Since you are still going north to find the cannibals' residence, I can help you. There are people in our tribes who were captured by them before, but they managed to escape on the way, and they know some routes. If you need it, I can find a few people to guide you. The strong man admired Yunya's courage and offered to help with guidance. Oh, really? That's great. If we can have your help, it will indeed allow us to take fewer detours and complete the task assigned by the leader. Sooner. I thank you here first, Yunya said in surprise.